There's something interesting happening with the PC hardware market that's linked to the AI boom. Um, and that is that hard drives and RAM prices are going up significantly, and stock is basically being bought out years in advance. And companies are also getting out of making consumer RAM in favor of producing commercial grade products to sell to large companies for their AI machines. This is interesting because people are posting online about how, like an SSD they paid $99 for is now $500, or RAM that they purchased for $200 is now $1,000. And a lot of these deals have not been finalized. In fact, I think a recent NVIDIA OpenAI like multi-billion dollar funding deal just fell through. So we don't necessarily know that these contracts to buy RAM in 2027 and 2028 by large companies will actually be upheld. But the fact that it's creating such a shortage and sort of hoarding and scalping and a panic in the market, it really is reminiscent of the COVID times when people were buying up all the toilet paper and, sanitizer, and those products were super scarce. And then eventually everything was okay. But with this, it looks like it's going to be a longer term issue, and we don't know how many years it'll be until, RAM is affordable again. But it basically means for anyone who wants to upgrade their PC or build a new PC, it's going to be very expensive if they're not willing to wait, or delay, push back by a few years. The other thing is basically AI is this huge hole of uncertainty because we really don't know how big the bubble can get and when it might burst. Like OpenAI is already reporting huge losses, so they have to keep on gaining funding. But to keep gaining funding, they also have to show some kind of commercial viability or use case. And I think that's why they're expanding into different areas, trying to figure out where they can actually finally make decent money. Because the ChatGPT subscription, for example, is just not making enough money. And there are smaller AI companies coming up that are actually more commercially viable for their scale. So it'll be interesting to see where AI goes and how that will affect hardware. But I'm also curious if there's like a third sort of industry that hasn't been touched yet that will be in the coming months or years that would be worth watching out for. Simply because with the growth of AI, it's entirely possible that entire markets could collapse simply because AI replaces them, or it could be that there's this huge supply constraint. So other than RAM and hard drives, electricity is a big one. It seems, like cooling systems could be another one. Basically anything that could get used in a server farm. It's almost like the crypto scheme, but 100 times larger for whatever reason. Because AI is much more mainstream than crypto ever was in that sense, right? You've got like 80-year-old grandparents using ChatGPT, which was never the case with crypto. So it's going to be interesting to see the global impact of AI, and then what will happen when we get to the stage of robotics, right? When robots are going commercial and en masse, will that create shortages in other areas? So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing where all of this leads and how it will affect our day to day use of electronics and other things. Jeff Bezos also recently announced that he believes the future of computers is that people won't have a computer at home, or a powerful one anyway, and they'll instead have a decent internet connection and a weak computer, and they will rent cloud computing time from a powerful PC online. And I can see a lot of gamers not wanting that, so I'm not sure how valid that will become. But it might make sense. It might be mainstream for a lot of people who currently don't even own a computer, right? So they might use just like their phone, their smartphone, to access computing, or they might buy a cheap laptop like a Chromebook to access computing. So I could totally see that being viable, but I don't think it will be as mainstream as Jeff Bezos wants it to be. But yeah, technology is progressing. We'll see where we are in a few years. But definitely we've crossed the Rubicon in a way where, we can't necessarily go back to a pre-AI world. So we'll just have to learn to live in a post-AI world.